All right, let's settle in for a wonderful little adventure. This one's called Flying North. At its heart, this is a story about two puddle duck sisters, Rory and Maya, and their, let's just say, very eventful journey back home to Boston after wintering down south.
So our story kicks off in what you could only describe as a duck's paradise, Florida. The sisters had spent the whole winter hopping between theme parks, and honestly, they were living the dream. But as they were about to find out, even paradise can have its, well, perils.
And oh man, did they have it good. I mean, forget their quiet little ponds back home. Florida had it all. We're talking gorgeous pools, super fun waterfalls, and the best part, trash cans just overflowing with bread. It was a major, major upgrade.
They were just having the absolute best time. One morning, Rory's already paddling around in a pond, telling her sister to come on in. And Maya, being Maya, just yells, "Cannonball!" and makes this huge splash that soaks them both. They were just cracking up.
Right as Maya says something like, "Why would we ever go back north?" Rory sees something moving under the water. She just freezes and screams for Maya to get out and get out now.
And a second later, this huge, green, scaly monster lunges right where they were swimming. They scramble out of the water and immediately start arguing. Rory's yelling, "It's a crocodile!" And Maya's yelling back, "No, it's an alligator!" They didn't really wait around to figure out who was right, though. They just flapped like crazy into a mangrove tree to get away.
Yeah, after a close call like that, they were suddenly on the exact same page. The heat was one thing, but a monster in the swimming pond, that was a pretty clear signal. Their Florida vacation was officially a wrap.
So, with their minds made up, they said their goodbyes. Mostly to flamingos. You know how it is. And early the very next morning, with the sky all pink from the sunrise, they took flight. They were heading north, back to Boston.
A few hours into their flight, they spotted a big flock of ducks and just tucked right in with them. Flying in that classic V formation, well, it's not just for looks, It actually makes the long trip way easier and safer for everybody.
They got to talking with one of their new travel companions, a duck with a really shiny green head. He was telling them all about his home up in Maine, this perfect little pond by a mill where corn would spill sometimes. Sounded pretty nice, but for Rory and Maya, Maine just seemed a little too chilly.
The whole trip north took a few weeks, but it was actually a pretty fun flight. They all shared stories, and the ducks from Maine thought the tale of the mystery monster was just the funniest thing they'd ever heard. It definitely kept everyone's spirits up.
And then, there it was, the familiar skyline of their home city. They said their goodbyes to their Maine-bound friends and started to spiral down, heading right for that pretty city they called home.
They were so excited to be back, but the second their feet hit the grass, they realized something was wrong. They were in Boston, sure, but they weren't actually home.
So Rory turns to Maya, totally expecting her to know the way. But Maya had absolutely no idea. And of course, they start bickering. "I thought you knew." "No, I thought you were leading." Until it finally dawned on them. They were completely and totally lost in their own city.
So it was back up into the sky to find a place to land. And pretty soon, they spotted what looked like a perfect little spring in a schoolyard. It was this shallow bowl with all these shiny pennies on the bottom. Some college kids were walking by, tossing them bits of bread. They thought, hey, this could work.
Rory was literally in the middle of saying how great this new spot was when, whoosh, a huge jet of water shoots up from right under Maya, blasting her straight into the air. Rory started laughing so hard, right up until a second jet launched her into the sky too.
That's when they figured it out. This was no peaceful spring. It was a fountain, and it looked like its hourly show was just getting started. They had to dodge these huge streams of water and flap for their lives just to get away.
Feeling a little soggy and pretty defeated, they kept flying. Just outside the city, they found another spot that looked absolutely perfect. It was this beautiful, curvy pond surrounded by perfect green grass and lots of trees. It looked so peaceful and safe. The pond was fantastic, full of bugs and grass for them to eat. But then they found something strange. Tucked into the reeds were dozens of dirty, white, dimpled balls. Now, never having seen a golf ball before, they came to what seemed like the only logical conclusion. They must be eggs. This must be a super popular nesting spot.
And just as they're thinking that, a white ball comes whizzing past and plops into the water. There another and another. They had landed right in the middle of a driving range. About a dozen golfers were now hitting balls straight into their pond, and our 2 ducks had to dip, dive, and dodge this storm of plastic to get out of there.
Wow, that was another close one. I mean, first the mystery monster, then a crazy fountain, and now a hailstorm of golf balls. They were exhausted, they were losing hope, and they had no idea where to even go next.
As the sun went down, they just settled on a rooftop, feeling completely defeated. Rory started to sniffle, totally convinced they were never going to find their pond again. They just huddled up together, wings wrapped around each other, and got through a long, miserable night with no water.
But then, the next morning, something incredible happened. Maya woke up to a smell, a familiar, wonderful smell. She sniffed the air again, and her eyes just flew open. It was corn, the sweet yellow corn kernels the old man always used to feed them.
And then, down on the street, they saw him. It was the old man himself, walking with a bag of corn. Hope just flooded back. They took off and followed him as he slowly made his way through the city streets, until, finally, he turned down a quiet little side street and walked up to a pond. Their pond.
They were honking with pure joy as they splashed down into the water. The old man greeted them as if he'd been expecting them all along. He tossed handfuls of corn into the water, and for the first time in what felt like forever, they could just relax. They were finally home.
And so, after a wild winter of paradise and peril, and a journey home that was full of one misadventure after another, Rory and Maya were finally safe. They spent the rest of the day just floating peacefully on the familiar waters of their own pond, finally home and ready for a sweet, peaceful summer.